always, this is the day the Lord has made. We're rejoicing and being glad in it. Those of you, if you desire prayer at this time, you can give us a call as the phone number appears across the screen. And on tonight, this is a special, really a year-end edition of Better Life Lessons. We're calling this Up Close and Personal. This is going to be a Q&A, so if you'd like to write us a question, hopefully before the broadcast is over, I'll be able to answer it. As always, let's welcome this national and international audience. Praise the Lord. Really tonight, as we're kind of coming close to the end of the year, this is your rare opportunity to somewhat pick my brain. Now, I'm not going to say I will answer every question or anything you ask. Now, some stuff may be, we may have to leave to the next life, But hopefully I can give you some insight and some wisdom that has really helped me along the way. And maybe to kind of share a few things maybe you don't know about me. Let me first say this, and we're going to do our Q&A because someone gave me a list of a few questions anyway. But sometimes people like to know, what is my view on politics? Because you have some people who have no opinion and they say church and politics should not go together. That's not true. It's biblical. It's supposed to go together. Church and state, it was never supposed to be separate. Now, as far as me with politics, I can pretty much recall first getting some real serious thought about politics in '83 when Harold Washington ran for mayor in this city. And then kind of after that, it's stuff kind of, and I always voted because voting is important, and I mean that, especially us. We definitely should take that because there were years ago we could not vote. I mean, African-American people. And voting as a Christian is really like your seed. In no sense in us complaining about this and that, we never vote. Now, am I Republican or a Democrat? I vote both ways. Now, I know tend to where you at, you one side. No. I have voted Republican. I have voted Democratic. I've even voted independent. And really, it's just a matter of when you vote, and I believe this, you kind of ask God, who should you vote for to a point. And then I understand how the political system works. It's like they're all liars. It's kind of the least of the two evils, or at least someone who's, you could feel that, now let me say this, not so much that can help your community, but as a Christian, someone you feel that might be closer to this. All right? So that's my views on that. And I don't too much encourage people to say this particular person unless someone asks. Other than that, I won't do that. Plus, that's not legal. I can't publicly, as a pastor, get up here publicly and tell everybody who to vote for. That's not legal. I know people do it, but it really isn't. What are my views on same-sex marriage? Same view as the Bible. That's all, and that's with anything. And I'm kind of like this. I don't try to condemn people because sin is sin. And I know we make a big deal about homosexuality and all this or that, but I view it just like fornication. Don't get on the homosexual and you're not going to raise up against the fornicator. Now, I'm just giving my views on that. And I know, churches, we do this. We got to stop this on. Well, what's the difference? Homosexuality is only fornication among the same sex. So we can't play one side over the other. Sin is sin. And it has nothing to do with how you personally feel. If the Bible and the Word says it's not right, then I got to say it's not right. And it has nothing to do if it's your uncle, your mama, your sister, your brother, or your cousin. It's just not right. And it has nothing to do with how you personally feel. And this is where we have to be careful and not get personal feelings in the sun. You know, it's just what the Bible says. And that's all to that. Christianity in Hollywood. Now, we know that I think there are 7, what we call 7 mountains or 7 spheres of influence. And one of them is arts and entertainment. We know it's what education is, business, it's sports, it's the media. What's the other one? Obviously your family and religion and all of that. Now, I'm a believer in this. That doesn't mean because we say we should not be a part of that. The truth of the matter is we're supposed to not only be a part of it, but we're supposed to control it. You know, the body, we're supposed to control the influence of sports, the influence of entertainment and arts, education, family, religion, and all of that. In other words, what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to infect those areas with the kingdom, not the other way around. I'm not supposed to go into Hollywood making their kind of movies. I'm not supposed to go into arts and entertainment in the music world singing secular stuff. See, we're supposed to infect and influence those areas. Praise the Lord. You know, so it's not to dismiss those areas, but we're supposed to get in there and take it over. And I know we're in a time where folks getting in and they're doing that. We are not supposed to be secular. We're supposed to go in the secular and transform it and turn it into the kingdom. That's the difference. You know, so it's not to say we shouldn't be a part. No, we're supposed to, because those are the influence of the world. You know, and we're supposed to get in there and take them over. Let's see. Well, I tell you what, let me say this, those who are viewing, tonight is going to only be 45 minutes. 45 minutes only. Amen. Praise the Lord. Now, these were a few questions I just gotten. And one of the questions was, how do you get your family on board with your ministry? What if they didn't want to be involved with church ministry? Well, first of all, it's kind of like, how do you get your kids to go to school? You ain't asking them to go to school. They don't have an opinion. They're in kindergarten. I ain't going to school. Oh. So that's first thing. You know, so that's kind of part of that. There's no choice. See, remember, one of the positions of a parent is to lead. And of course, the best leading is by example. But to lead, to guide, and to direct. You know, as a child, you know, when you look, you don't have no opinion. As a parent, I'm helping direct you. I'm helping you formulate opinions. See, because as a parent, if you don't do that, they're going to get it from somewhere else. Doesn't that just make natural sense? I'm not talking about no big kid. I'm talking about when it started out small. You know, you develop your child. And from a biblical standpoint, we always use the scripture, train up a child in the way they should go. That's your responsibility as the parent, to train them in what? What way is it you want them to go? Now, you can't train them if you don't know where you want them to go. And that's usually the dilemma with most people, especially within Christian homes, and it comes from lack of knowledge. They have no idea the direction where the child's supposed to go, because 9 out of 10 times, as an adult, they don't have no direction where they're going. So you can't train somebody in the way to go when you don't know where they're going. Doesn't that make just natural sense? So that's important in that sense. And personally, in my case, our children, they were born into this. They didn't know anything else. It wasn't, and I know different households are different, but for my, personally, it wasn't as if, they were older and we all of a sudden got saved. No, when they came in the world, this was it. As far as the church world and all of that. So that's why, and they'll tell you, that's why I be a little harder on them than some other people. I say, listen, you all don't have excuses like some people who just got introduced to the Lord as a teenager. You all were reared and born into this. You didn't have that, you come home and your mom and daddy backsliding, drinking and all that. Y'all didn't see all that stuff. So that all began in the very beginning. And that's very important, and that's how we was able to get them involved in the ministry. And like I said, it's when anything else. When they start out young, you don't have a choice. You just, I remember growing up, being small, and whatever my mother cooked for dinner, that was it. It wasn't no, I don't want this. Well, no, they don't want this. Today's dinner is hamburger helper. Now, I know we're in a whole different generation. It's because some parents, not forget it, don't eat then. I ain't had that option, don't eat then. Are you kidding me? And worked hard for this food and you going to not want it? See, this generation, we're giving children too many options that they should not have. That's another message for another time. So hopefully that answers that one. Next question was brought to me. What were some of the mental battles that you had, and how did you overcome them? Well, I can say just going back years and years as a youngster, and I don't know if I've ever publicly said this, I had the same insecurities as like a lot of other people. When I was young, I was skinny, and and that just, some stuff may seem okay now, but I'm talking about early 70s. I was a skinny kid, and it just didn't seem cool, to be skinny. And then when you're small like that, you tend to feel, I'm telling you how I felt, I didn't feel tough. So there was some insecurities that way. And especially it didn't help it because this real big guy, came, this real, matter of fact, he's the nephew of a famous football player I went to grammar school with. And he came in back of me and grabbed me by the neck and nearly choked the life out of me. I mean, so, that thing messes with your psychic. I had some issues. Now, this is going to sound strange to some of you. That's why some stuff when I teach, you all say, I can understand and relate. I went through a period of insecurity about my nose, because at that time people were saying, your nose, you got white people nose. I'm going back many years ago, It just seemed, don't nobody stare at it now. It's not like Bob Hope, But that was an issue then. Because it wasn't flat, it seemed like that. Let's see. I had some mental inferior issues about white people. Because like I said, I'm going back many, many years ago as a kid, it just seemed as, now this is up close and personal, right? Now I'm not saying everything I'm saying was the right thing, but these were some mental hurdles I had to get over. Because it seemed like, at that time, it just seemed like white people just had it made. And based on what I saw, but black folk, we were struggling. And it was just something that they just, it was just, like life was just so wonderful. For them, and see, because that's what I was around to a point. You know, uh, it seemed like they talked so perfectly right, while some of us, we had this slang flat. They'd say the police, we say police. I'm just telling you some stuff, Uh, now, of course, I got past all of that, but those were just some mental things I had to get past. I've said this before, being bused up north to an all-white school, my brothers and I. I mean, it kind of was rough because you figure it's 1969, 70, and being called the N-word. I mean, you know. So there was some issues like that had to get over. I even kind of fast forward, kind of even as a minister. Now, when I got into the ministry, now I was always a good preacher. You can go back and listen to old tapes. Some of them I get. Preaching was, hey, I can preach. But then when I took over as a pastor, now my father was a great preacher, but he was also an excellent teacher. And that thing kind of messed with me because I wasn't sure if I could actually be a good Bible teacher. Now, I'm talking about when I took over as pastor. And none of you are here who was with me at that time other than Sister Prince and Pastor Laura, I think. I think South was, I believe, right? I forget, yeah. And for probably maybe the first part of the year, about 6 months, I would not really even have Bible class. I just kind of have praise service because I was kind of because now I can preach. There's a difference in preaching and teaching. Total difference, And I just wasn't sure that, wow, could I really spend 45 minutes an hour teaching? And that thing kind of got with me. Now, obviously, I did overcome it because I take a back seat to no teacher on the planet, But now, all of those things, those mental battles, there were different phases in my life, and I had to overcome it. As far as that skinny and that fear, and what really did it, that fear, is when I got my bike stolen in front of Pastor Laura. There's my cousin and I, and her, and some of you know Sister Miles, and I was just so scared because there was fear in me, and got my bike stolen. I was embarrassed too because it happened happened in front of her, and you just felt helpless and all of that stuff. And now I won't tell you what happened after because I had brothers and cousins who kind of redeemed the situation later, but we won't get into that. I think the statutory limits is over for what happened, but that day on, I said I'll never feel that way again, and that's when I started working out. Now that had to be, I think that was, I don't know if I was a freshman. If I was a freshman in high school, it's probably 77 maybe, or sophomore, 78, something like that. And I never again, that started me working out, built confidence. And from that time on, now I'm not crazy, but I don't fear anybody. Now, like I say, I am not crazy. If I see somebody down there with guns, praise the Lord, I go the other way. But I don't have no fear now. I have no fear of nobody. And I had to overcome that thing mentally, So those are some things. You can have mental battles, and it's important. Don't overcome them. Do what it takes to get past it. Like people have fear of heights and flying and all of that, and all of what that really is a fear of death. See, if you can get past that fear of death, you have no problem flying, getting on no boats, or none of that stuff. Because it really boils down to people afraid to drive. It's really a fear of death. So you overcome that, everything else will work itself out. What do you do when you want to relax and not think of the stress from church family? Well, one of the things I like to do, I like to watch television. Now, I'll say this, I don't know if I've publicly said this, but I enjoy, now I don't call them soap operas. I call it daytime television. See, I got to say that because people look funny and like, well, there's daytime TV and there's nighttime TV. So I don't mess with you with your nighttime television, so don't bother me with my daytime. And to this day, I don't too much get to watch it live, but I can DVR it now, and I can watch it late at night. I can watch daytime at night. Now, ain't shame on that. Some folks get all bent out of shape, but believe it or not, it's a distraction. It relaxes me. It totally relaxes me. And I really first got really, if you want to call it hooked, whatever, General Hospital in 1980. I'm telling you, me and my cousin and these some guy friends, we all cool. But, we hang out and what's that? And at the time we were partying. And he said, hey, man, did you see General Hospital today? Yeah. We talking about it. Yeah. Talking about it. What did Luke do? I'm not, this is real life. I'm not kidding. And to this day, like I say, don't write me no other letter. You shouldn't be, Now, that was a period I went through where I just completely didn't watch it at all, But to this day, it's a distraction. It's just a distraction. It relaxes me. I know it's fake and all of that, but it's, like sports, professional wrestling. I've been in the professional wrestling since early 70s. And if I'm not busy, if I'm able to go when they come to Chicago, I don't do Sundays now. They do a lot of stuff I ain't going nowhere on Sunday. Now that's just me. I ain't making a law. That's just me. I ain't doing nothing. I don't care if Luke and Laura was here on Sunday. I ain't going to see them, But when they're here on Mondays, if I'm able to go, I'll go, And you all know the last couple of years, I go to the Bulls games. So no, all of those things helps to relax. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because probably I'm in my 19th year of pastoring, definitely the first 10 years, more than 10 years, I didn't really learn how to balance this out. And I tell this to pastors now, you've got to have that balance. Because if you don't, you're going to break. You're going to break, So I've learned to just kind of have this great balance. And when I mean balance, you ain't doing nothing sinful or crazy, But certain things, what relaxes you? What do you enjoy? So I enjoy now the Bulls game, especially I enjoy to get nice, good seats now and all of that stuff, So that helps to relax or stress tries to come on. All of those things, it helps me. You have to do certain things that helps you to relax. And like I said, nothing that's sinful, nothing like that. And then don't let nobody condemn you about it. I don't let nobody condemn me about daytime television. Hallelujah. Next question was, besides prayer, what's the proper way to handle family discord, especially with a teenager? Now, I believe this. It depends on what it is. What is the discord? What is the situation? What is the problem? Really, it depends on that. It depends on how old is the teenager. Is the teenager 13 or 19? Because you can't handle a same situation with someone who's 13 and the other one is 19. So it really depends on that. But assumingly, teenager is living with you, you're the parent and all of that, depending on what the situation is. Some situations require that you can talk it out, communicate. Some situations require discipline. Some situations require a warning. So it just really depends on the situation, how old they are, you know. And now, one of the things I do believe this is you really, as an adult, you should kind of set the rules of your household in the beginning. You know, and not just with your children, with guests too. It's just like any and everybody know, if you come to my house, you can't smoke. I don't have no ashtrays. You ain't smoking in my house. I got relatives like that, and they know it. And they know they can't go outside and smoke and come back in because the smell going to be in their clothes and it's going to be in my house. So I don't even play that game. While you at my house, you officially don't smoke. You kick the habit. I'm not kidding. You know, no sense going outside smoking and come back in and we all smell it. You know, so there's certain, and no cussing either. I got cussing relatives too. See, as long as you in my house, whether it's 3 hours or 8 hours, you saved and sanctified, even if you can't spell Jesus. You know, because I ain't have nobody do something I don't do. And every month, them bills come in our names, not yours. So, you know, you kind of set the rules of your household for everybody, including your children. You know, as they start getting older, okay, you want to start going out with your friends and different stuff like that. Here's the rules of the house. Okay, you got to come in by this time. That's already established when that happens. You know, when all 4 of our children went on prom, that was a certain time. Now they were, I guess, 17, 18, depending on who it was. Certain time you got to be in. Because you're on prom, they know all night. Because you see, some of us know all night get you in trouble. That's another message for another time. So certain rules have to be kind of established and set in the very beginning. Then as you go along, that your kids already know this. You know, you can't do this or that. Like I say, it depends. You can communicate with them. Sometimes you can talk things out. Maybe communication is broken down. And sometimes it does take discipline. You know, and sometimes it can take a warning. Hey, don't you do this again. It really depends on how old they are. Like I said, teenager, 13. You can't treat a 13-year-old like a 19-year-old. Let me say this. You know, if you're 13 running wild and crazy, you can't put your 13-year-old out. You can't do that. But you know what? You should be able to. Now, something wrong if you can't check your 13-year-old. All right, that was a little weak, but something wrong with that. And I'm not, and don't tell me, well, because there's no man in the house. Trust me, I grew up, I knew some single-parent women who would pull the hair off your head. Literally. I remember one of my brothers, I won't say who, one of my brothers, they tried to rise up against my mother. I can see it like it was yesterday. He turned around, she picked up this big ass tray and playa! He dropped, boom. Now I was a little kid, I'm just looking like. And that wasn't the beginning of it. Now that was part one, because then later on when my father got home, oh man. Part of me felt sorry for my brother. I won't say which one. So a lot of discipline, a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not advocating violence, so let me throw this out there too. This was this was more than 40 years ago, because I know we got rules now, you know. But certain things have to already be established in the beginning. All right, any of you, if you have some questions, either write it down, bring it up, or just come on up. You got 15 minutes. Hallelujah. No, I'm not kidding. In 15 minutes, I'm quitting. So if you all gonna come, if you're gonna ask it, ask it.
All right. So my question, I know you probably taught on this, but I just want to kind of go back. You know, as a Christian, we know we are to conduct ourselves as Christians all the time. That's what we do. But sometimes we can, as people, we can put on an act to where, okay, I'm Christian here, but then let's say I'm Derek. So, what do, or what, how do you feel like some people say, okay, they know not to do stuff around you because you're a pastor, but then you say, well, I want you to feel comfortable, so don't look me as pastor, but look at me as Steve. So if they feel comfortable with that. So I guess my question to that is, when do you allow yourself, or when do you allow the situation to where people know they can treat you different because they know you're a pastor, then they see you being regular, like, okay, he's a pastor, so he might not, like this, or I wouldn't do that in front of him because he's a pastor. Or some of your friends may be like, okay, I know him as Steve, so I can make him do this in front of Steve and not looking at him as Pastor Steve. You understand what I'm saying? So, what as a person just being yourself, to where you're not separating yourself from your spiritual life, but you also know you are a way of life, to where you don't want people to see just because you're a pastor or you're a Christian that you should have to not do what you feel unless it's, if it's in that boundary. So what are the steps that a person take as a Christian to say, okay, if that's you, but don't feel like, okay, because I'm a pastor, that you have to change your way. If you were the same before you know I was a pastor, then why would you change if you knew that's like I was Steve?
Well, um, I guess I'm trying to fully kind of understand. Uh, People, now I'll use me personally, people I'm around, people who've known me before me pastoring or before me in the ministry, before I was saved, I really don't see too many of them anymore. And it's not that it's intentional, I just don't. Um, some relatives, to be honest, now it's not that I even told people to do this, and I have not. But a lot of my relatives, really, none of my brothers even really call me Steve anymore. I never told them not to. They really just don't, you know. And maybe maybe they don't need to. See, because I tell you, sometimes uh, everybody can't separate that. And sometimes you don't need people to view you but a certain way that's really important. You know, everybody know what my name is, but sometimes you don't need people, including family and relatives sometimes, to view you a certain way, especially if you are in a spiritual leadership position, because sometimes this is not a turn on, turn off, turn switch on. You know, you can't like, hey man, let's go homie, and then Ibo Boshando. Because most people's mind they can't flip like that. And you have to be aware of that all the time, you know. Um, so it really depends let me put it this way. It really depends on how bright your light is. That people, whether it's relatives or friends or whatever, well, they'll have that level of respect. If your light is not, and this is no condemnation or put down to nobody, but if your light is not that bright, then certain people will treat you a certain way regardless. But when your light is kind of really bright, there's certain things they just won't say or do around you. And there's nothing you can do about that. You don't want to dim it. You know, I don't want to dim my light just at the expense to say we cool. We are cool, but you know, you understand who you are. You know, now as far as you know, when people say, well, who know the real you? This is me. You know, people will say that, like, well, now Better Life, you all know me as your leader, as your pastor.
Yeah.
Pastor Laura know me as her husband.
Right.
My children know me as their father. So they're all the same. You just don't know me, and you shouldn't know me as no husband. So there's a part of who I am that only she has knowledge of. And it's not like a bad side.
Right.
See, we have to kind of be careful that you know that you act this way in public and that way. It ain't that. I shouldn't be doing nothing creepy and crazy with her.
Exactly.
That's out against this, you know. So it's just different roles, and it just depends on who you are. But the truth really is, the brighter your light is, that's just kind of how it is. You know, that people will automatically kind of, they'll treat you a certain way, and you have to be okay with that. But like I said, this is not a Jekyll and Hyde thing. You know, that you're one way at church, and then you completely something else at home. That has nothing to do with whether you're a preacher or Christian. You shouldn't be that way anyway. And that's not to say that, well, sometimes, you know, you get in the flesh. You can get in the flesh here at church. So that's not even the issue of that, you know. So that really, but with me, it's not too many. A few will call me by my first name, and I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, I've never demanded anybody to call me Reverend, Pastor. I've never. I mean, you all are supposed to. Don't you dare say Steve. That's disrespectful.
Right.
But outside of, you know, my own mother from time to time, sometimes she'll still call me Steve, but then most of the time, hey, Apostle. She, you know, and I never told her, but she do that. You know, now I know some people have issues with that, like, well, you ain't being real. Either you're real or you're fake. Which is it?
Yeah. Amen.
Either I'm this way or I'm not. I don't know if that kind of helps out.
Yeah. Okay. Another question that I had is, you know, some things in life we go through that may not associate self with church, but people have a tendency feeling that you live in the Christian life that it's supposed to be churchy. Let me give you an example. Like you may do a favor of someone, and it has nothing to do with the church, but some people can make it feel like it's part of the church because you know you're in the Christian life. So now my question is to that is, do you when you tell someone to not that's not none of their business or something like that, because it has nothing to do with the church, but it has something to do that may happen outside of the church, would that be mean for you to say, well, you correct the person and say, well, I don't think that's something that you're supposed to be a part of? Or do you make yourself say, well, this is something a Christian thing to where okay, we know we Christians, ain't no doubt about that. You know, we conduct ourselves, but some things is just we don't bring to the church. So do we separate the two to where if it's something that we know that is not like sinful act or anything, but it has no associate with the church, because see people can get things mixed up between okay we church and everything's supposed to be this is the Christian we church and we don't do this at the church or we don't do that and it has nothing to do with church, but it just has something to do with maybe you the seed that you sowing in that person's life, good or bad. So do we as individuals let people know that if that has nothing to do with church lifestyle, that you don't have to.
Give me a good example, kind of what
Okay.
you're saying.
One altercation that I was in that I did something for someone, and it had nothing to do with church, but I was convicted in the church because I did it, and I felt like it shouldn't have been like that because
Was it at church?
no, it was not at church.
Well, how did anybody know?
Well, because it came back to the church
Well, how did that happen?
because someone wanted to know, and it was like it just pretty much felt like it put it like this. It was a conversation that was spoken in the church, but it didn't have nothing to do with the church. It was a favor for someone, and coming to the person because you see the person at church, like you said, once you're in church you don't, but the person was like okay they was being mentored or something like that, but they understanding was totally different from what you was doing, what you did for a person. So you
I
understand
guess what I'm saying, if I cut my neighbor's grass, that has absolutely nothing to do with the church. So what would that have to do if somebody said, "Oh, I heard you was cutting your neighbor's grass"? What does that got to do with anything?
Right.
So how would anybody know that unless I told them?
Now it could be the other party.
What if the neighbor said,
Right. If they said something like,
you cut my grass? Okay, yeah, I did.
Right, something like that. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But I guess what I'm asking is like when you involve certain things that comes to the church. Okay, if an incident happened outside of the church and you leave it outside, but due to it might be another member.
Well, see, now okay, now
Involve
that's a key
another-
thing.
Okay.
Now, if my neighbor went to this church, then that's a whole different dynamic too.
Okay.
Even though she live in my area and I cut her grass, but if she go here, then depending on what it is, then it could get said, "Oh, you cut." See, it's like that's my neighbor where I live, but here that's brother or sister so and so.
Exactly.
So there's a conflict of interest there.
Right.
So you have to kind of be careful that way. If a person go here, then something could get said depending on what it is. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But like you said, it depends on what's been said, right? Okay.
And depending on what happened. What was done. Me cutting a person's right. That just kind of depends.
Okay, so I mean, because
Yeah.
I was in a position like that, and I got approached by a situation like that, and I felt it was kind of a little offensive to me. But then I wanted to know. Reason I'm asking because I wanted to know was I wrong because I felt it was offensive to me, but the favor that I done was just an innocent favor. It has nothing to do with any sinful act. It was just a favor.
Let me put it this way. I don't want to, unless if you don't want to publicly say it, I won't publicly give you an answer. And if you want a real good answer afterwards, you have to kind of tell me what exactly it is, and I can tell you. Because if we guessing and I'm just giving general answers, that ain't
Right.
gonna really,
Well, I understand that, but then
Yeah.
we can talk
Okay.
about that. Okay.
Amen. So, I'm not sure if you covered this earlier, but this is like it's one question, but it's two-way. So, what advice, wisdom would you give your former self, like early in ministry, of things like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done this, whether it's like dealing with, the church or other ministerial staff or your family with the church, slash, what would you tell ministers who are in the beginning of this path that you're on, to like what not to do, what things that you could watch out for, that it may seem like a good idea but it's not. So like things that you've learned throughout your path,
Yeah.
regarding different areas of your life, but how it pertains to ministry.
Sure. I would tell any young minister, one thing I would tell any young minister: learn faith. Learn it. Because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time. Learn it and practice it. That's first thing. See, because if you don't learn faith and you're in ministry, then you're going to get caught up into sight, what you see, what you feel, and all of that. And because in ministry you're dealing with people, when you can easily get disappointed, hurt, and mad and bitter at people. So I would tell any young minister, first of all, learn how to live by faith. First thing, learn it, because that is what will keep you when challenges and different things come up. Next thing, and I said it kind of earlier, especially with pastors, have that balance. You've got to have a real balance in your life. The key is, people would think like that the church is first. The church is not first. God is first. And I was telling this, matter of fact, to a pastor a couple months ago, and he really didn't know that, because he always just put it, and we can easily do that. We can put God and church as if it's the same thing, and it's really not. Now God should be first in all of our lives. God is first, whatever God says. That's why I mentioned earlier about you got different laws and things going on. What does the Bible say? What does God say? That's the first thing. But you have that balance in your life. Now, obviously, if I knew what I know now, 15 years ago, sure I'd have did something different. Because if I'd have really knew faith, that would have avoided a lot of things I did. See, because when you don't have faith, then you start operating in your flesh. When challenges come, then you're just trying to think of stuff, what to do and that can just mess your head up, when you don't have any faith, So definitely that, learning to balance my life with, like I say, God is always first, with the church and all of that, do things outside of the ministry. Like I say with me, if I go to a sports game, and sometimes when you're young, you don't think that's important, and it really is. You've got to have that balance. Now, I'm not saying take it to the left field, because then you got people say, see, the pastor said balance, and then all of a sudden you out there and no longer in here. So you don't do that. You got to keep really, the point of keeping a balance is so this stays right. If this gets off, everything getting off. One of the things I always say is you have to know what it takes to keep you. And I know what it takes to keep me going. And I also know what can happen if I can get off. So you have to keep this together. You know, be patient with people. Uh, you know, that helps a lot. Not try to rush stuff. You know, things have to grow. You don't want to put steroids into everything or microwave everything. You know, there is a process to ministry. There's a process to life. And I know, you know, we want everything right now and all of that kind of stuff, but most things is better that you go through the process of things in life. See, because when you go through that process, you really can appreciate it so much better. That's why sometimes you have some older people, like myself included, who's having the best time of their life now. It ain't no, you cannot pay me $100 billion to turn back the hands of time to be younger. You can offer that to me. I have nothing back there I want. I don't want to be 40 years old again, 35 nor 20. There's nothing in me that would want to go back to that. Nothing. Not nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You want to be young again? No. You know, because there's a, now I know a lot of older people don't. I wish I was 35. Well, see, you got to get it going here. Because this controls this. You know. And sure, there's some mistakes I've made, even in ministry with your children. You know, now let me say this too. As parents, as your children start getting older, when your children get older, of course you want the best for them and all of that. But don't stress yourself out when they make bad, unwise decisions. Because that thing, I'm telling you, that thing can mess you up. It can mess you up. And it can mess you up because if you are a parent who not only has invested, but who love your children, because a good parent don't want their child off. You know, a good parent does not, you don't stop parenting. Now, I know some people be like, well, you 16 now, do what you want. That's not good. You are not a good parent with that mindset. You know, 16, do what you want. You don't do nothing like that. Or even 18 for that matter. You know, it's like I said earlier, you know, it said how you get your children in ministry. It's just like when the child growing up. How do you get them to go to school? You're supposed to go to school. You know, it ain't no 16, I don't want to go to school no more. What is that? You're 16 and you're supposed to be at school at 8 o'clock and it's 6 o'clock. It ain't no leaving you. They know to get up. Are you kidding? You better get your, that's good parenting. See, a good parent does not want to put their child in any position to fail. To sit there and say, let them sleep. You putting them in a position to fail. So you don't do that. You know. So I don't know if that answered, you know. One question tends to tip off a lot of the, oh, I'm out of time. Come on.
Okay, I have a quick question. What does it do, you as a parent, as far as you having 4 kids and everything, what would you give advice to people that sit up here and cover their children more than they should? Because sometimes, like we say, just for say I have grown kids, sometimes you can be overprotective of those grown kids, but they should make their own, you know what I mean, by their own choices in life. But yet and still, you always defending them from someone else because they sitting over here doing because you sit up here always cover them always on everything that they're doing. And if somebody sit up here and say that sometimes you need to allow your kids to make mistakes, and then they'll get upset with you because you're sitting up here trying to control their lives as though they were small. And then number two is when you was talking about patient, when you ministering to somebody and we know that you should go accordingly to how the person is towards you. And some people can be a little aggressive. How would you actually talk to the individual as far as ministering to them, but not being so aggressive where they feel offended by you as well? And my last one, I'm just going to give them all to you. The last one is families. When it comes to the family, my family is a Christian family, born and raised, all of my family. But yet and still, my, how do you say, different ministries have different way of doing things. How can you sit up here and not offend them far as what you're learning compared to what they're learning through their ministry? But yet and still, they sit up here and still get offended by you. And then I don't understand why do family members get jealous of a person because they believe more into another. So those are my questions.
Okay. Let me try to remember. Let me take the last one. One of the things, when you learn certain things in the Word and all of that, you never want to come across like you know it all with other people. If you have family members or friends who go to other churches and maybe they don't know what you know. And you have to really be wise with that, because I've seen this happen with people, especially really here, who they learn things and then their other family members go to different churches and have different beliefs and don't really know what you've been taught here. And you always have to keep this in mind. What you know now, you didn't always know it. And see, when you keep that kind of at the center of everything, that gives you an element of patience with other people, because, you didn't always know what you know. And then you have some people who are not in a position to learn what you're learning right now. So you have to use some wisdom and be careful. I can be around some people, and they'll say some things that's just not scriptural at all. And maybe they learned it in the church they're in. And most of the time, if it's not necessary, I just won't say anything. I don't agree now. Now, when people say something, now there's a word I have to say. Now, I'm saying this publicly because now when somebody come to me, they're going to hear it and know what I mean. But usually when people, and it can be preachers, they'll say something to me, so that's not scripture. And I say, I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying I agree with, I understand what you're saying. You know how it is, Pettis, we all get sick from something and die. And they want me to respond. I say, I understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. That's just not true. And that ain't true to me, and that's not what I believe. And then sometimes I just won't say anything. But I'm never agreeing when somebody says something that I know is not scripture. Like, yeah, that's right. I don't do that now. You have to be careful of that. But like I said, on the same token, you have to be wise. You don't throw on what you now know and they don't know. And now, if a person, if they want to learn something, then that's kind of different. Then you even it's just like a baby. You have no business giving no 2-3-year-old month baby steak. You'll kill them. That's why they got baby food. And it's the same token with that. You can't just throw out what sometimes Pastor Laura and I, we'll get revelations about certain things and whatever, and we can't just throw it out. You got to kind of let it marinate some, and it's the same way with you, with other people. Now, let me tell you with this offense. Offense is a choice, but usually people get offended because it's kind of, it's like you revealed their lack. That's really when people get offended and mad, because now you didn't reveal what they don't know. Or if a person get offended by how God has blessed you, it's only because it made it look like they have nothing. So they get offended and they get mad. You know. And sometimes you can't do anything about that. You know what you know, and you can't do anything about that sometimes. But you have to use some wisdom, though. You don't just go out and somebody say, he may not come when you want him, but he don't time. That ain't true. Don't do that. Don't do that. You just kind of. And then some people ain't ready to hear nothing else. Some people don't want to hear anything different. That's people who sit up here week after week. They don't want to hear that. They'll sit there. They don't want to hear that, and that's fine. Nothing you can do about that, I'm trying to remember what was the other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well. See, it depends on that individual. People are gonna make their own decision regardless. You know, but to be there. See, now I do know this. Sometimes there comes a time when you have to kind of step back a little, in a sense, because the person maybe is not receiving what you're saying. And there comes time you just kind of step back. Now, if you want to ask me something, you can ask me something, but I'm not going to be just there, just in your ear like that all the time. So there are situations like that happens. But then there's nothing wrong with still having that. It don't matter if your child 30, 40, 50 years old. If you see them doing something that is not going to help them, or it's the wrong decision, or if they're about to go through something and the right answer, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Now what people have to learn, whether you're a child or any of our ages, try to be smart. I learned this some years ago. I've never been stupid. And what I mean by that is I know people know more than I do. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. If somebody has been to Mississippi 8 times, what in the world am I? See, that's your route how to get there. I'm going to figure this out myself. That's being stupid. If somebody been to Mississippi 8 times, I'm going to listen to them to tell me how to get to Mississippi. Now, you don't have to know Jesus to follow that pattern. You just got some people, there's a mixture of arrogance and stupidity in there. I'm going to do my own thing. All right, go right ahead. I can jump off this roof. I ain't going to hurt myself. Well, go right ahead. But as far as a parent, you never want to see your child making a bad decision, because the older you get, and any of us who of some age, you pretty much know how situations going to turn out because you've seen it before. I've seen somebody jump off the garage and break their leg 20 times. And then if I'm seeing you doing the same thing, I know the outcome. So, of course, you try to tell people, or tell your children, don't do that, because this is how this is going to end. There's nothing new. You know certain things because you've seen it happen before. So, sure, you're going to always try to instruct them or tell them. Now, if they don't do it, they choose not to. So I don't know if that helps. I don't remember what the other. Sure. Well, then you would tell them that this this person obviously said they're getting offended by the way you approach them. And No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. You know, we always have to have wisdom in whether we're ministering the word or even if we're just mentoring in life. You know, because you can't treat everybody the same way. People are at different mental levels, just like those who have multiple children. They're not all the same. Some you can talk like this to. And if you do that with the other, man, you didn't crush them. So with some of them, you have to stroke their head. So everybody's at different mental levels, and you have to kind of have the wisdom to know how to do that. You know, it's just like some of you. Some of you all, I can say some things to some of you real harsh, and you don't think nothing about it. Some of you, I say that you be crying. Some of you can take some stuff from Pastor Laura, and then there are others who get offended. I'm leaving. Ain't no love here. So you can, you just have to have wisdom when you, especially if you're mentoring and talking to different people, different levels. You know. So, all right. I believe that's about it. I hope some of this has helped you on tonight. This has been Better Life Lessons. God bless every heart. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Come on, let's thank God for this audience.